Today I'm talking to Vitality's support player, Destrian. Destrian is arguably one of the most flexible players in the EMEA VCT League. We've seen him play a huge number of different agents, and he's a really interesting person to talk to because of this. Today we go into a lot of detail about what makes him such a good flex player, how you can become a good flex player yourself, what kind of pros and cons there are to being able to play lots of different agents, whether it's better to be a specialist or a generalist, as well as some advice on how to build a good team culture, things you can do within your team and exercises you can do to help build that, as well as things that can help your comms in your games with your team. I hope you enjoy this episode. See you in a bit.
Invest it here. And you're dead. Okay, no you're not, Destrian.
Sorry, and it's not just a dream. There's something to this.
No way,
Destrian!
Delete that round.
He's gonna get more. He gets the follow-up, but he
He's
can't
got a
expect a TP. Destrian up towards the side, tap on the spike. Does he get the attention? Yes, he does. But did he see the other player? Omen v Omen, Destrian. The angle looking good. He's found him. A massive round for Vitality and Destrian.
So how are things? Let's catch up. I mean, tell me how's life? How's life right now?
I mean, things are good. Life is good. Chilling in Berlin, playing, practicing.
Yeah.
We finalized the roster, so like all is left is to just like practice, right? So.
Yeah, sure. You still got. When's your first? I guess do you have dates for your first matches when they're played?
Not really. I mean, all we know is that it's next year, right? So
Yes,
probably around February or something. So like,
Yeah.
I'm not sure myself. Probably, maybe there are dates, but there's still quite some time.
It's a long
So,
time, actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a long off season. I mean, I feel like it's a bit of a grind to keep playing for such a long time without tournaments. You know.
Yeah, I mean, there is hope here and there that we might go to this tournament or that, like off-season tournaments, or it's like hope that we get invited. But like, it is what it is. Yeah, like, I think things are gonna get like better in the future. I hope at least. So, and if not, that's how it is.
Yeah. Yeah. This is sometimes it's challenging right now. I think the kind of prospects of the scene, right? I think certainly anyone that's not involved in anyone involved in tier 2 is kind of like, what do I do with my life right now? Kind of trying to make the right decision is really challenging, I think, at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, like a lot of different teams take it way differently, which is kind of interesting. Like some teams don't even play; they wait for the actual season to be closed, right? Some teams, like if trialing, they take their trials really long. They make super long trials. We took like a bit of a shorter approach of trialing, let's say, and then build a team pretty early, so we have time to build a foundation, build like good chemistry in the team, all these things. Yeah, and for tier 2 teams, it's just unfortunate, right? And like I'm so happy that I'm not that I can play in this league, because at least we have something to look forward to. While it's a bit harder for some others.
Yeah, it's challenging. It's definitely a challenging time. But as with anything, it's always swings and roundabouts, right? I think there's good times and there's bad times, and I think we just got to kind of survive through the kind of economic state that it is right now.
Yeah, I mean, of course, like, look, like for me, in the end, I'm playing games for a living. I can't really like, like, oh, I can't like, sure, it's bad and I can complain about things, but I have to understand, like, in general, I'm super happy that I'm here, and like there's nothing more I could have wanted, like with a job that I'm working with. So, I mean, you can complain when it's needed, where the changes are needed, but in the end, I'm still happy. So.
Yeah. So let's talk about some more interesting things. So I guess the first thing that I'd like to know is kind of like to see behind the curtain is kind of where do you fit into the team? How do you see yourself as a member of the team? What kind of role do you fill? Kind of things do you do in game that enable your team?
Well, it's hard to say, honestly. Like, somehow on this team, I became the oldest person. Well, in the previous roster, I was like the third oldest or the fourth. Like, I was like, yeah, I'm young here, blah blah blah. Like I'm not young, but like for any esports player, but still, I was like, yeah, I'm still like not the guy with the responsibilities. I can do this, do that, and then I come like after the trials, I'm like, oh well, damn, I'm the oldest here, so uh, I guess I should show some kind of example and like just pass on knowledge and things like that. But in general, like as a role thing, I would say that I can bring like I would bring the calmness or filling the gaps of the team.
Mm-hmm.
So I am okay with taking the bad roles of the team, the bad positions of the team, the guy who has to jump spot at one position 50,000 times and then he just dies because 5 people run over him. Like, but he gets the info that is needed to win the round, like things like that. I don't really care. I don't have like an ego or something to prove with that. And I'm happy. Like for me, what's fun is to win the game, right? It's not to drop 45 frags and then still lose the game, right? Or to boast against someone that I'm better than you. No, for me it's more of a team game, especially like in Valorant. If it was like a game with like only 1v1s, like then you could like do things. Here I just want the team to be the best and I'll do whatever is needed for the team to win basically.
Do you feel like you've always been like that as a player?
I think so, yeah. Like I've never been. Of course, it's nice, and I used to get that a bit with when I would play like with my friends, even like some ranks, like at the start of Valorant, like and then like because I had some experience from CS:GO, I could like go and like drop 30s and like carry them and blah blah blah, and then like sure it feels good, but when it comes to team games, someone has to do it. You cannot put 5 duelists on a team and expect that to just like instantly work and everyone drops a 30, and if everyone drops a 30 you win the game, right? In the end that's not how the game fully works. So someone has to get the role, and like I tend to think things much more objectively, let's say, and for in the long term at least. Yeah, so for me it's always been like in most of the teams have been like more or less this role.
That's interesting. And you feel more than satisfied so long as the team's winning.
Yeah, I mean, of course, not to say that I have the luxury to not shoot well or
Of course not.
not call things that are like some of the things, or not to make like clutches, things like that. Of course not, but so there's a lot of things you can still improve on, and I still have a lot of to improve on like certain positioning or certain things like that only my role can do basically. And then sometimes even playing this position you can pop off and have a really good game with a lot of frags. So like there's things I can improve on. I feel happy improving on them, or like I feel satisfaction. I have like motivation to improve on those things. So why not,
I love. I think you've kind of hit a really important point actually, because I think a lot of the time on this kind of when I've talked to other people, and I think generally the kind of discussion goes to how do you carry and how do you do those kind of things, right? Because that's kind of I think what most people. A lot of people kind of dream of that, right? Especially people that are very driven by their ego. It's about popping off, getting highlight reels and lots of frags and that kind of thing. So I think it's interesting to kind of ask, how do you think you become a good supportive player? Because it's a question that's not often, I think, considered.
I mean, I'm not sure. Like,
Well, you've done it, so I'm interested to kind of ask you, kind of reflect on that. As what's made you so successful at it?
I would say it's a good question. Like, it's because it slowly happened, like over, like let's say the 3 years,
Yeah,
or even
yeah.
the years before that, in Counter-Strike or other games. It's hard to say, right? It slowly just happened that I fit that role, basically. I was never a guy with a big ego, and in the end, I think how I improved is like, at least I would like to say that I have pretty good like read on people of like I can control the situation in a way that like do not like if it's a let's say out of game, if it's like a dangerous situation where it's like a fight about to happen, I am the person who can like see, okay, this guy has these triggers, this guy has these triggers, and how to calm down the fight and like let's say calm everyone down and like escalate the situation in the best way. And I think that helped in teams as well, where you're like you have this guy with big ego and like he doesn't like what this person does, and this guy is like, oh, but you're overpeaking this, but you're peaking that, blah 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 blah. And then like to manage to de-escalate that situation and like fill in the roles, or if you see a person that is like he's a really good, let's say, duelist, but he doesn't call for utility, he doesn't like in his game sense he doesn't see others people in his view, then in like while teaching that in a way, I can still be able to be a good support. Like I think every duelist can have this where like if they focus on killing, they sometimes just like go into this ADHD mode, you know, where just like this, that, and like sometimes they will not call for utility. So like a really good point for like a supportive player is to realize that and call for that person. Look, I'm gonna flash this for you. Like you sometimes you let's say playing breach, you would stun a certain position without even saying that like to that person because you see that he's running towards that position. Like things like that, noticing tendencies in people, how they play, and adapting your supportive things on that. So it's more looking at other people than yourself, I would say, like in short.
I think that's really important, like that awareness. And as you say, I think it's probably something that you've built over many years and many different teams, and I'm sure lots of challenging duelists too.
Yeah, I think in my like let's say in this short career of mine, like I never really wanted to be this player, but nor I could say I would want to be like a duelist or a disc player. I just like the competitive aspect of the game. I like playing the game. I fit this role in like my previous team, and then like it escalated. I'm not like unhappy with this. I'm fine with it, you know, and that's how like you don't necessarily have to be as like, oh, if I want to be a player on a team, I want to be a superstar. I think that's like a view that can sometimes become toxic in a way, right? So and then it can prevent you to even getting onto teams and like getting any recognition, and then in the end you, let's say, get washed, you know, by current terms.
Yeah. And that's true. That's true. That's a really challenging thing. I think it's interesting because you've been quite fortunate, I guess, in your career that you've not really experienced that where you've been out of a top team. You know, I think kind of as you've gone, you've always gone up and up and up to better and better teams.
Fortunately, yeah. It's been interesting on like yeah, as you said, my career has just been going up. Even like I never won anything yet, which is like my main goal right now. And I think with this team, like there's like a big chance if we do it well. But yeah, like luckily, maybe in the end, unluckily, I think it's still good to have like these small going downs, so you can like understand. So, but luckily, I will not have to experience that. But yeah.
So, what things do you think you need to work on personally for you specifically? What are things that you're trying to work on now?
I mean, there's a lot of things, and like I
You can
had
be
like
specific. I mean, I'm interested to know really.
also some easy things are like even like let's say like a really small thing that I sometimes do is like when I am having a not such a good game, I start crouch spraying. Like I see a person, I crouch down and then I spray. And a lot of players, like even in the top level, do this.
Yes.
But it's something that it's also not too easy to get rid of because like I feel like this habit has come from from even like the past games, right?
Yeah.
So it's, let's say, that's something to work on. In the team, it's also like how do we fit in the team? It's still like three new people in the team, right? So what's sure, I know my like role basically in the broad, but like specifically what is my role in this map, with this agent, like how do these people like to play? So like it's just like building a team. It's also like you have to adapt yourself, and when everyone adapts themselves to like to be the perfect teammates, then when like that's when you have a good team, right? So yeah, but the aiming thing, there's some communication things. Uh, there's something I'm like we've kind of put quite a bit on focus on is outside of the game, like so going to the gym regularly, having decent nutrition, like things like that. That's like a lot of players tend to kind of, yeah, I'll just play more ranked. I'll just, yeah, they tend to neglect. So things like that is also a big point of mine, like for the future things.
Yeah, I don't think that could really be stressed enough. I think you've really hit that on the head. I'd really like to know, how do you actually go about beating the crouch spraying thing? Because I think a lot of people struggle with that. Actually, I mean, you're right that it's a really common thing. I mean, what are you doing to try and beat that?
I mean, I think you need to take it in layers, let's say, for that thing. So a start, the easiest thing to do is like do a mission of like going into deathmatch and not you can spray, but don't crouch spray, or like don't commit to the fight that it's like commit to commit, Deathmatch is pretty easy because then there's no stress, there's no like extra situations, everyone just running around
Yeah.
like just like headless people, like it's fine. Then you can take up a notch of going ranked. Like you don't like, because in, let's say, in practice you still have to, your communication has to be like 10 times higher, everything needs to be much more focused, so it's a bit harder to focus on this. On ranked you can like chill a bit. Some people even play like with music, like they don't really care, especially in the current situation of ranked. So you can use that, while not of course throwing the game, you can use this like, okay, this game I will just focus on that. And then maybe for some people what works is like unbinding crouch, and then like when you start spraying and crouching, you see that you're just still running to the side, and spraying like while running, and you're like, oh damn, I don't have crouch. And then it's like slowly you get forced into not crouch spraying.
Yeah.
But
I
just
like
about
that.
break Yeah, it's about breaking the habit and then starting to build a new habit that surpasses that.
Yeah, it's a challenging one, right? Because I think actually what you've described is a method you can apply to a lot of different problems, right? Especially habits that you've really ingrained into yourself. Is first of all, you just got to, I mean, you've got to consciously do it in the first place, right? Really, with
I mean, you have
intention.
to acknowledge that you have it at start, right? So, and
That's
then you
true.
can start slowly working on it. And I mean, the only thing, like, I can shout out one person is I hope I don't. I think it's Dr. Huberman.
Oh yeah, Andrew Huberman. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, like he has a really good series on breaking and building habits.
yeah.
So if people are struggling with that, like that's the thing I would recommend. It's our sports psychologist Marcus has recommended it to us, and at least to me, and like, yeah, it's a really useful like segment of his one of many podcasts.
Yeah, I would. I actually couldn't recommend his podcast more to anyone. I think it's probably one of the most useful podcasts out there for people that want to be performant generally, because yeah, science backed advice for performance. If you haven't watched some of his other stuff, it's all really good. Actually, he has a huge number of podcasts that are
Oh yeah.
lots of different stuff. I mean, I think sleep is a very common one, and he talks a lot about that and how important it is. I think we're all aware of it, but sometimes it's nice to put a number to it and say, actually, no, you're going to be about 25% worse, and 25% worse when it comes to a video game is, well, it's more than the difference between winning and losing, right? It's a big difference in performance.
Oh yeah.
Are you playing any new agents? at the moment? Because you said that you like to kind of fill the role and you fill the gaps for your team.
I mean, I played even last season, right? I played quite
Yes.
a specter of them, like going from initiators to controllers,
Yeah.
uh, like and the variety between them. Uh, like I'm not sure how much I'm supposed to say now, but
Yeah. We
like
can always edit it out if it's
yeah,
something that we can't
no,
include.
no, but there's no harm in saying that like my roles are similar, I think, to last year's.
Mm.
Uh, but I'm happy to see that we have like our roster is not like basically position locked, so we have quite flexible players, you could say.
Mm. Mm.
So we have time, and like who could know, like in 2 months I could be playing something different because we decided to try this thing and it worked, right? So it just, but
Yeah.
for now, like I'm staying with my roles, yeah, just to keep it simple, keep it.
Do you find it easy to play more than one role? Because obviously most players, I think, would just play controller or just play initiator.
I mean, it comes with its own, let's say, dangers of like
Mm.
if you play a certain controller, let's say if you play Omen and you play it as like even as another smoker like Astra, with Omen you have to be, let's say, a bit more aggressive in certain situations because you have the capability to do so, like with all the TPs and things like that, right?
Mm.
And one ways. While with Astra, there's only so much you can do, and you need to constantly help your teammates with the global smokes, right, or
Mm.
global utility.
Mm.
So even in one role, there's like you need to kind of change your playstyle based on what you're playing. So it's the same with between roles. So sometimes like it's a bit harder to adapt, sometimes it's a bit easier, but I think it's the same as every role or every agent. Yeah, and
Mm. How do
I think
you? Sorry.
yeah, I think every player who's not a one-trick duelist can easily, especially at this level, can easily adapt to what they need to play.
Mm. Mm.
Maybe like some sentinels are like they need much more knowledge or experience to play them well.
Mm.
But or certain like initiators, like let's say even breach. Some players are like they are too aggressive or too passive with it. Like so, there's like and of course it all changes within every team, right?
Mm. So how do you go about? You're a long way down this road, so I'm asking a question that's maybe quite difficult to relate to at this point. But how do you go about kind of learning how to do that and the different styles? How did you do that when you first started?
I think I have been just put in the position, and like I either learn and survive, or I don't learn and I get kicked, or like or just like I don't stay in that team, right? So
Mm.
I mean, you do what you need to do. You review odds. You, if it's like a new agent, you haven't gotten used to like the abilities and the timings of the abilities, then you just like you use your free time to go play rank with that agent, even if it's not fun, even if it's not the best position, like best agent in that like map, and that you just still pick it, and then you see like what your agent is capable of doing, and then another thing is what is good is like watching other good players play that agent. If you see like a good, like let's say you need to play smokes, then you can watch like I don't know other players from other teams, and then like you learn how they play. You can try it yourself, see what works, what not, and then you slowly like adapt and improve on it, right?
Mm. Mm. Do you have any players that you like to watch for the roles that you play?
I would say Mako is a good example from the
Yeah.
RX.
Yeah.
Like I've watched some of things he does as a smoker and implemented them. So yeah, if I had to say like one player, it would be him.
Yeah. He comes up a lot, I think, because he's very technically proficient at that role, right?
Yeah, I think
And
he's a person who doesn't do many like he almost doesn't do any mistakes. Like he's a pretty, how do I say, consistent player in that way.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my thought instantly goes to that's because he's a specialist and he plays a very small selection of agents. And how do you feel about that? I guess being when you're kind of the opposite of that, in that you play a very broad variety of agents. Do you think that affects your ability to be as proficient as he might be?
You could like, I think theoretically there is like in the end, if you play one agent for hundreds and hundreds of times, eventually like you find maybe like a small thing. So and then you will be like 1%, 2% better than the other players who are like playing a bit more of a variety. But it also, like, let's say in that agent's capabilities, maybe I would be below, but then I could help in the flexibility of the team, so we could have like a bit more interesting compositions of the uh of the basically of the match of the team, and then maybe we can counter pick some, like if we play against a certain team, we can pick Fade instead of Breach, instead of instead of this, instead of that, because it more counters their composition, right? So in that way,
Yeah.
I would be more advantageous, you know. So it's like you lose on some things, but you gain in others. So I think it's just a style of playing, and as long as you're not just like, oh, Jet is all I know, and like if I'm not playing Jet, I'm not playing at all, then it's like it's fine.
Yeah, that's interesting. Actually, I like that point because you might lose out on 1 or 2%, which of course maybe on a map like Ascent where everyone's playing exactly the same, mostly, okay, of course we've got lots of people playing Viper now, but at one time where everyone was playing the same comp, that 1 or 2% maybe does make the difference if everyone was a specialist. But then actually, if you can counterpick, then you're probably giving yourself maybe a 10% advantage or such, because at least in my head, I think the compositional matchup probably plays in more than someone's specialism on a particular agent.
Yeah, I mean, probably. I hope so. Otherwise, I'd be at a disadvantage. So.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That's interesting you say about your style and your kind of. Well, the word I like to use, or has kind of come up a few times when I've been talking to other people, is kind of like identity. And identity, not just as you as an individual, but also as a team. So would you say that kind of what you've described there about kind of counterpicking and that kind of approach to the game, would you say is that kind of the style and the identity of your team?
Maybe, like, I think it's gonna depend on quite a few things. Like even things that are like not really dependent on our team, right? Like if everyone, like let's say a default comp resides in like let's say Sunset, right? Everyone plays the same. For us, there's no need for us to experiment and do this and do that, so we're ready to counter pick teams. If the comp we're working with is like working against 95% of teams, and like even against those other 5%, it's still good, right? So yeah, but in general, I think our team is definitely capable of doing that. Whether we're gonna use it, we'll see. Like I can't say so far.
Yeah, it's too early to say.
Yeah.
It's just interesting because I guess in some way I think that comes back to kind of philosophy, right? Is do you want to be the team that okay, I have understood what you're trying to do to win, and I will adapt to give myself an advantage, or be the team that plays default so well that it's unbreakable because you believe that what you've created is just simply the best.
Yeah, I mean, with especially with adapting or like changing your comp, is also like it's pretty hard, right? Because like if you do it a bit too much, then you kind of lose like the identity of your own team.
Yeah, yeah.
And then let's say you pick this just to counter that, and they don't pick it. They pick a default comp, and you're like, oh. what now? We don't know how to play the game now. So it's kind of dangerous, and you need to be like pretty careful on that and make sure like you have yourself the really good defaults, But and the changes, especially now, since there's like not too many agents, or like even in the future, if there's gonna be something like drafts, right? Like where you can ban agents, you can pick only one. Like if another team picks a jet, you cannot pick a jet. Like things like that. If these things like in the future come up, then it's gonna be more interesting, and then it's gonna like change the dynamic. But for now, I think like the most adaptation you can do is like switching from Sova to Fade, from Breach to Sky, like things like that, or just like nothing like Omen to Astra, like small things like that, just to give you like a small edge, but you can still retain your like team identity, let's say.
Yeah, it's definitely an interesting way to think about it. Yeah, because I think, like you say, it's kind of you've almost got like the boundaries within which you can operate, right? And actually moving outside them, you're just going to have to change up so much.
Yeah, it's gonna either be really good or
yeah, you're just gonna hard counter them so hard that it's just gonna work, or it's really not. It's really just not gonna fly.
Or you're gonna have a good talk with the CEO of your company then.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I have as always, I have prepared questions.
Oh sure, hit me.
I wanted to approach this actually with some. Are you happy to talk about last season? And if not, I'm not gonna like.
Oh yeah,
talk
I have
about it.
no problems.
Okay, so how were things last season for you guys as a team?
In general, I'm pretty like personally, I'm pretty happy with the progress I made. I feel like. As a team, I think there were a few problems that like we didn't fix in time, or things like just didn't click in some ways. But I think in the end we had like at least not the worst season. I can say
No,
that
it
much.
really wasn't. You were very like middle of the pack, right? And actually, I think towards the end, it looked like you were making a lot of improvements.
Yeah, we had some like I don't want to say like anything bad, but I'll just say like things weren't clicking as much, or like sometimes the team atmosphere wasn't in the way that we intended from the start to be. And in the end, like even though we felt pretty good with each other, we were just, like to this day I'm still good friends with everyone who's not in the team anymore. Like it's still we just like didn't fit as much in the team, and like things had to be changed, I think, in the end. So we had a lot of things to learn from, I think, and things that we can implement instantly now without like and basically catching these like orange flags or red flags. Yeah, one of those things could be like maybe even like outside of the game. So let's say what is the work ethics in the office versus outside of the like office. Let's say if you're sick, how do we proceed with that? Like, yeah, like without naming anyone or saying anything like bad, because there wasn't many things that were bad that I could be like, yeah, it's that person's fault. Like in the end we failed like as a team.
Yes, of course.
At least in our own eyes, because I think we had still the potential to easily make masters and like at least one event, right? But it wasn't meant to be.
So what you've kind of described to me, you feel like, correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like you're saying you felt like you have a bit of a culture problem in the team. And that wasn't really, because those are things that you can set out from the start, like you say about, okay, this is the clear expectation of how much people are expected to work, for example, how many VODs you should watch outside, how much practice you should be doing, those kind of things.
In some way, yes. In some ways, I think we still had like if you compare to others, I think our team still had a really good, let's say, family-ish bond.
Mm-hmm.
Because I felt like what helped a lot is being everyone is from Eastern Europe, right? Mostly.
Mm-hmm.
So we still had moments where we could, like, let's say, me and Molsey or me and Sender or whoever, like we could argue about something, like, no, this is bad, this is bad. Then say like F you, and then like 3 minutes later we're again best friends because that's
Yeah.
how like we're used to be, you know, like there's no word, like there's no point in being like mad up, like mad on something that is not gonna be, like, it doesn't really matter, right? Like I got mad then, we talked about this, and you're stupid, no, you're stupid, we figure out, we don't figure out, next day we start again, like we're a team, we want to improve, there's nothing to be like, oh, I'm not gonna talk to that person, there's no grudge in it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
while some like, I think in a lot of other teams that can be an issue where it's like this guy is from more Western world, this guy is from Eastern world, this guy likes to like argue a lot, this guy doesn't like to talk like at all, like about problems. This so it's when these things clash, it's sometimes a bit too hard to build this family bond and feel like a true team.
Yeah.
And then when that happens, you come into the office just to work, just to practice. There's no spending time outside of the office, no spending time outside of the playing hours, and then maybe you start trusting your teammates less. Maybe you don't trust like the things they want to do, and you're like, and if you start doing these things like iffy, like if you don't fully trust your teammates, that's where the gaps start. And like good teams, like I think any good like top 5 teams, top 6 teams, like in the VCT, they will just like they'll see that gap and just pummel you through it. Like
Yeah.
they will not wait.
It's funny you say that. I think exactly what you described is one of the problems we probably when we work together on a team. I think that's probably what
Oh
you
yeah, like
described is
that was
precisely that.
yeah, and it happens I think in basically every team, like because especially like nowadays it's hard to build a team, let's say with only Lithuanians or with only, I don't know, Swedish people, with only we got some examples like in French scene or
Yeah.
Turkish scene. So we're still, there's a lot of players who can do that, but ultimately it's, if you want to be a perfect team, eventually you're gonna have to start taking players from other countries, maybe even
Yes.
other cultures, and it's like it's a challenge in most teams, right?
Yeah, I mean it's a really good point that you raise actually, because I think that overcoming those cultural barriers is a challenge that more and more teams are gonna have to face as we move forwards.
Yeah, and I think it's like even Counter Strike, maybe I think there was some of it in Counter Strike, especially at the start, where it's like everyone said like, oh, if you go international, you're gonna lose instantly, right? If you go, and like all the, let's say, NIP Swedish teams or like the teams that are fully like from one nation, from one country, they were leading everything, they were winning everything, right?
Yeah.
But what we see now is like it's the opposite now, right? So maybe it's the globalization or things like that, where people like get accustomed to other cultures, and then you can actually build a super team. You don't have to pick like, oh, I want to pick this guy, but I have to pick this guy because like the four teammates of mine only speak this language, and like they cannot speak English, and then you lose on a better player just because of language barriers.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a challenge. It's a challenge. So you said about like kind of doing things outside of the game. What kind of things would you guys do together outside of the game?
I mean, it can be anything. It can be from, let's say, even after official, instead of everyone going back to their apartments and just like to like celebrating together or being sad together, watching the WOD together. Uh, during like, let's say, warmer seasons, go out to play basketball together, go golfing, what, like it doesn't matter what, but just like being more than just like office workers, just being friends and like having this bond. I think it's super important. And Yeah, I mean, even after practice, chilling on the eating together, eating dinner together, or chilling on the sofa together, like talking about the day, it makes a difference in my eyes.
Yeah, I think it's something that's when you're together, it's much easier to do it, right? When you all physically live in the same
Oh
space, it's
yeah,
quite easy. I think for teams, and I think probably for the vast majority of teams that are all online, people tier 3, tier 2, where they're all online, it's a bigger challenge, I guess. But there's still things
it's
you
a
can
bigger
do.
shot. There's still things you can do, like even in back in Hong days, we still
Mm,
used to like, oh, let's invite like more, like a bit, like a few more people. Let's play, I don't know, Among Us. Let's
mm,
do some like party animals, like any party game or like anything online. You can still do like, let's go 5 stack. Let's go play
mm,
duo with a teammate. Let's go play duo with this teammate. It doesn't necessarily have to be like any physical activity. Just like like it's about spending time together and like getting along as friends rather than just
mm,
like as teammates, right?
I mean, I think that synergy is so important, right? I think that's actually the most successful teams have that. They have a friendship, right? That bond that allows you to connect with someone on a deeper level. It's not
Yeah.
it's not so superficial.
Yeah, it doesn't have to be like, let's everyone become best friends and spend every second with each other. But it's you have to keep this like something above just like, oh, I play with this guy in the team and then I go home and I do my own thing and he does his own thing and the next day we come and play again. I think
Mm,
it has to be more than that.
mm. Is there anything that kind of comes to your mind now that we haven't talked about that you've done as a team that you've really felt has like made a big improvement to your team, has really pushed you forwards?
Mm, outside of the like, I think those fun activities, they do like more of the silent work, so those things you don't really notice.
Mm,
But I think what helped, and I think is what helps a team from breaking down is like even at the end of the day, you can have a talk with everyone, and like it's something we used to do and we still do, and we used to do this way before is just talking about the day after instead of after the practice everyone's goes away.
mm,
We have a place where you can say, I didn't like that you were checked out today. I didn't like that you overpeaked today. And
mm,
there's like
mm,
we make sure that it's an open area for everyone to say what's bad or what's good about today. Of course, if someone's played amazing, then you have the chance to say like, oh, you called amazing today.
mm, mm,
You did this to like amazing, you know. So just this like outside of the work activity of like talking about the game or even about like anything, right?
mm,
I don't like how you cry when you die. I don't like how you like gives
mm,
people, if it's objective and it's you're not just saying, oh, you were bad today. Like if you have something objectively and like uh with, let's say, with facts or like
yeah,
with examples,
yes,
then it gives something, oh, some people don't even realize they did this bad and like this annoyed you. I'm sorry, and then like you can fix these things and like become even closer, as a team.
mm, mm,
So I think this has give us the most, like in terms of like improving the team or preventing the team from like collapsing or getting into this like bad mood or bad snowball like effect of like this guy holding a grudge to this guy and then this guy doesn't like
mm,
how this, yeah, like you talk it out, you say these things out because like some things you like if you say during practice, it's just gonna be like he cannot instantly fix it and it's gonna tilt this guy, or it's gonna be like outside of the game things.
yeah,
So it's better to have like a moment outside of the practice, like after practice, or maybe you can have like one day in a week, a few days in a week where you just have this like, oh, let's be open. No one
yeah,
takes anything personal. Let's clear our backpacks, clear our heads, of like any negative things.
mm, mm. I think that's so important. Actually, I totally agree. Like that's a game changer, I think, for a lot of teams, where an open space where everyone feels comfortable to say it, right? Like you say, no judgment, and you come with actual constructive advice that you can give to people. I think it's a really beneficial thing. And a lot of teams, yeah, like you say, they'll just fuck off after practice and be like, no, I can't. I'm not gonna deal with it.
Yeah, it's something that helps, and I feel like I'm not sure about like how many other teams do that. Yeah, it helps. Like, you don't have to specifically talk about rotations or like communication inside of the game. It can be like something as easy as like just saying, "Oh, this guy's having a live game" over and over again. It can trigger other people. So like, and for you, it's normal to say that, right? So
Yeah.
if no one says that it's annoying other people, you're not gonna stop, right? And then in the end, someone's gonna explode, and it's like, no, like you're crying too much, blah blah blah, and then there's gonna be an argument and collapse of the team. So it's good to have like these things done regularly.
Yeah. I'd love to hear about so you said it's nice now to have the time to kind of build the kind of basics for your team. So what kind of things are you guys focusing on first, to kind of build yourself that kind of foundation to move forwards with into next year?
I mean, again, I don't know, like I don't want to say anything special, but I think it's quite natural to actually build the fundamentals first. Even though like we're all at a pretty high level, we still have new people like Ronnie or Kicks who hasn't played, like let's say not against top tier teams, like for like they've been playing in tier 2 and stuff. So, and it's a bit of a different play style or different way even of practicing things. So there's like, we start with these things, like there's no point in like making 50 strats and 50 executes and just spamming those, because like they sometimes work in practice. It's better to like to make everyone on the same page and everyone understand what to do in these certain general situations, right? So build the foundation from the zero up, and then like as a like icing on the cake, you can add some execute, some strats, some like interesting stuff. But it's important to, even though it's boring, even though it's like it's can be annoying, but just to grind out how to default, how to execute into a site with whatever you have, not necessarily the specific way, right? Against this setup, against this setup, like just to how do you communicate, even like in clutches, not in clutches, like things like that, just building up like from zero up.
I'd love to know. I know you can't give too much away, but I'd love to know the kind of things that you actually do, because it's helpful for other teams, that are starting out and they want to kind of build these fundamentals. We all say these words, but they mean different things to different people as well. So I'd love to know kind of like where do you start?
I would say start like if I had to, like if I became like instantly a coach and I had to coach another team. It's not necessarily what we do right now, but if we like, because we're over, like if you're building from a zero up and then like you have these new players, blah blah, I would just work on the communication, because a lot of times even a bad call that is made like and everyone listens to it and like everyone does it like in sync and trust that call will be more times like successful than like two people say, okay, let's do this, then the three people, no, let's do this, and then like two people rush A, three people let's rush B. Like of course I'm hyperbolizing it, but you know, you get the point of like, it's five good ideas are worse than just one bad idea that is done by the team. So like in terms of communication, just make sure to be on the same page. If you want to, let's say things from like, if you want to peek something, you see a teammate nearby, call the teammate, let's double peek, let's clear this angle, use some util, call the util which what you're using, right? So, or like even if they use a like, oh, breach has no stun, breach stun day, like so other like your other teammates are like, oh, now we can take like, I don't know, garage, not garage, whatever, like another space. It's like it starts with the communication and the skill, or like let's say the good decisions. I think then then you can like at least there's something to look at in the VOD. Because if you start with the strats and then you go to the VOD and it's like, oh, you didn't speak, you didn't speak, you didn't speak, you didn't listen when he spoke. Yeah, and that's the end of the VOD reviews. You next day, like there's little to work on.
Yeah. I think it's a very hard thing actually to do, like in practice,
Oh yeah, like in theory it's easy, right? Just like if you pick together, if you make a plan, pick plan together. But when there's like constantly action and information is flowing, oh, this guy's here, then like 3 guys are communicating how to repush like A side. You and your teammate like on B side or whatever, you have to communicate how you're gonna defend the site if they're gonna come, or if you're gonna like play retake, play not retake. So it's like different channels almost like in the same team happening, right? So it's much harder to say than to actually do it, but
yeah,
it's I think the main thing, right?
I love your insight on it actually, because I think it's really interesting, because like you say, I think the communication is what makes a team, right? That's what takes it from 5 random guys just doing stuff to people actually doing stuff together.
Yeah,
right?
Otherwise it's
really
just
like
ranked, right?
Exactly. Yeah, it might as well be. It might as well just be ranked. Exactly. So do you have any kind of tips for doing that? Like, so let's say we have a team of people that are really willing to communicate, right, and willing to listen. Where would you kind of start to actually like to start doing those things?
I mean, it's a good question where to start, right? I think like because in general, it's not like when you become a team, like even in rank, there's some kind of communication, right?
Of
Right,
course,
like,
yeah.
and you learn things, and just like I think if you probably like the first step is to be patient. I would say, as funny as it may sound, like there's gonna be miscommunication with 5 people all coming in with their own ideas. If you have at least a little bit of like experience IGL, this would help like a lot. Because then at least you have like a main guy who would make the call, and then like you can make like mini plays like together. Like those things don't, but at least you have like a main vision.
Yes.
So that's why most teams have like an IGL who does most of the talking on the macro scale, right? So if you don't have an IGL to your team, get an IGL, or like decide that like the person who is like who has the most clear voice, or like he is the most has the most ideas, and he thinks he understands the game the most. Make him the IGL. Make him train being the IGL. If you're starting at a like low kind of team, like low tier, and then like eventually like you're gonna see those how much like kills how much more kills you can get if you say like let's pick together. It doesn't have to be a major plan of like, yeah, I guess that's the main tip. Now that after I mumbled for 7 years, I know like the main tip is start with the small things. So good communication doesn't mean that like every time you enter a site you're gonna be like, oh, I smoked this, I smoked that. I start with the small things of like when you start playing, double peeking something. If making a crossfire, things like that, or like even if it fails, like at least you did something together. And then like those things you can improve over time, but yeah, basically just like double peeking, saying like, okay, I will break utility. You can watch when they're gonna retake, they're gonna throw arrow, whatever. I'm gonna break the arrow, focus on the enemy, like throw counter util, whatever. I'll destroy the arrow. Just like small things like that, and then I think eventually it's gonna improve itself, and then you're gonna start filling in.
I mean, it's all about starting to build a plan, right? And a plan can start, like you say, with the most basic of things. And I remember you as a player that kind of, I think you had the natural ability to do that, actually, to kind of, like you say, calm people down and take charge in those situations. Do you still do that today?
I still can. Like I feel like I have the ability.
Yes.
But we have like right now and even in the previous roster, a lot of times like I still do that, but I don't like. It's not like, oh, I'm the only person who does that. Now, like, but now that we have like when like in teams when everyone is like motivated or they're able to drop their egos or something and they want to improve, they will start calling these things themselves. Like if we, let's say, notice that in like pre-theory or theory, then they're gonna be like, oh, it's a 5 versus 3. Oh, we need to like 3 people will call like, oh, advantage, advantage, advantage. We need to like not die, right? Like things
Yes,
like
yes.
that. And then there's when everyone is calling it, I need to do it like a bit less, or I don't need to take the as much of control, like as let's say in back in ATL days.
Yeah, I'm interested. So at the level that you're playing at, when you say, okay, so of course we can start with something very simple, play a crossfire, right? And I think for probably the people that watch this, actually, that's maybe a little too basic. So how to what level of detail would you go? You know, let's say we're in a post plan, right? What kind of things would you call? How much detail would you give if your teammate was someone that maybe didn't communicate as much?
Uh, I mean, it really depends,
I know
right?
it.
On
I
like
know it
what kind
depends on the
of
situation, right? You can imagine a situation in your head. I don't mind. I won't mind what it is, but like, how much detail are you going to give there, right? More of a, okay, let's hold this space together, or okay, when they come for the retake, I'm going to throw my flash and we're going to do this, and then we're going to fall back. Like, how much depth would you go to in that kind of situation?
I think what's most of the time what is enough is basically contact to a certain ability usage. Like this
A
simple
trigger.
plan, yeah, it works like really easily of like, oh, let's say on Haven A, you're like, oh, you're breach under Heaven. I'm
Yeah.
short. When I see the guys coming out city, stun peek.
Yeah.
Most of the times, if like, of course, let's say if they have not, like enemies have no util, blah blah blah. Most of the time, it's gonna work. I spot a guy, I fall back, the stun comes in, we peek, we kill the stun guys.
Yeah.
Uh, of course, you can make the situations much harder. Of like,
Trading util. Yeah, like they've got loads of util, you got loads of util. It's more challenging. I
yeah,
understand.
then like, or yeah, actually, you've made a good point of like, or you reminded me of like, let's say you planted the bomb, and then you have breach aftershock, you have two killjoy mollies, you have shock darts, and this. It's important to like for everyone to know, guys. I'm gonna use the killjoy mollies first. Okay, after that I'm gonna aftershock. So we're not like they tap the bomb and then like 2 mollies aftershock, 7 shock darts, and so ult comes in at the same time, right? So
Yeah, so you've
even
not stalled any time at all.
yeah,
Yeah.
you stalled 3 seconds of seven ults and 5 abilities, right? So there's even things like that. I think like you could see like even top teams make mistakes sometimes, like even in those simple situations. So just like you can get it as simple as you want, or as let's say intermediate, but
Yeah.
the point still stands the same.
I think it's what advice would you give to people that are kind of struggling to do that? Because I think certainly I've worked with a lot of players, even like tier 2 players, right? People that are exceptionally talented and are probably on that level where if they were able to make some improvements, particularly to communication, that they would be able to be tier 1 players if they could do that. What kind of advice would you give to people that need to add that kind of thing to their play? And they have the game knowledge, and they're certainly, they're top tier players in terms of the way that they can aim.
I mean, it goes back to my point that like one bad idea done together is better than like 5 good ones. So even if you have to quickly make a call, if you're in a position to make a call, just do it without like, especially in practice, like in officials maybe it's different when you want to win the game, right? But
Yeah.
in practice, like, or if you're a player who focuses too much on your crosshair, right, or like or on killing people, so you forget to call or forget to make a plan or listen, it's fine to focus on communication even if your performance drops. Like that performance is gonna come back later after you get used to the good communication, right, or listening to people. Like it's okay to sacrifice some things, or like as I said, like the bad idea, like you call it fast, but like everyone listens to it, it fails. Okay. Like next time you instantly know, oh, last time I called this, the correct solution is this, and like you learn from mistakes. Like that's what practice is for, right? You don't need
Absolutely.
to, because I see like, especially we see like a lot of players like in practice who just, even a lot of teams like play their practice to win, and then like some teams like I bet like even if they win against us, they're like, oh, like we beat Vitality in practice, bro, we're insane, and then they go on official and lose against Potato Esports. You know, like they,
Yes, five guys from ranked. Yeah.
yeah, and then it's like, and then we can go and like we can win against Liquid or whatever. Like we can win against let's say Fnatic. Or, it doesn't matter. Like
Yes.
we can win against a good team, right? It's because like during that practice you just ran and went for the kills, like just to get kills, and like
You weren't
while
trying
we
to
were
learn anything.
learning how to default and how to use like these things, these things, these things. So
Yeah.
it's the result in practice doesn't necessarily mean anything unless you like you actually learn something in the process.
Yeah. I think that's a really
Yeah.
great point. So we're about our hour. So I don't know if there's anyone. Obviously, we want to shout out Vitality for allowing this to happen. But I guess if there's any final advice you want to give or anyone you want to shout out, then now's the time to do it.
Oh, I mean, I saw your like your podcast, this interview thingy with Tyler, with Bambino, and
Oh yeah.
yeah, and I'll just reiterate what they said, which is I think is important. A lot of people I see still on Twitter and ranked just don't stop burning bridges. It's your ego can get humbled a bit. You're like you don't have to answer back for every angry comment you get. That's fine. They're gonna pass. Like it doesn't change anything because that person might be the person you will be working in 1 year's time, right? And
Yeah.
if you say something bad, you burn the bridge. Unlike you just didn't get a trial to a team that you always wanted to join. You know, like just yeah, be humble and nice to people because you never know who you're gonna have to work with.
I think that's a great point, actually, and a really great one to end on. Thank you so much for your
Right,
time,
man.
Destrian.
Cheers.
Cheers.